Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Maureen Elsberry.
And I'm Alejandro Rojas. Thanks for joining us.
We're here to get you caught up on the news, so here are some of the space and UFO stories that have made headlines recently.
Scientists are perplexed by a pair of strange lights on the surface of Ceres, a dwarf planet in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter.
NASA's Dawn spacecraft photographed Ceres on February 19th from a distance of approximately 29,000 miles. Although regions of the higher-than-average reflectiveness have been seen on Ceres before, these new photos from Dawn show two bright spots within the same basin on the dwarf planet's surface.
The brightest spot continues to be too small to resolve with our camera, but despite its size, it is brighter than anything else on Ceres. This is truly unexpected and still a mystery to us, said Andres Matthews, lead investigator for the framing camera team at the Max Planck Institute for Solar System Research in Germany, in a recent NASA press release.
Although scientists are puzzled by these mystery lights, they aren't without possible explanations. As Mashable describes, the most obvious contender is ice. Although ice would reflect more than 40% of all light hitting it, the difference may be accounted for by the resolution limit of Dawn's camera at this distance. Scientists have previously detected water vapor coming from the surface of the dwarf planet, making ice a more likely option.
But Chris Russell, principal investigator for the Dawn mission, believes this may be pointing to a volcano-like origin of the spots, but we will have to wait for better resolution before we can make such geological interpretations.
NASA's Dawn spacecraft entered orbit around Ceres on March 6th and will continue to collect better photos of the dwarf planet and its mysteries during the next 16 months. With better photos, scientists will hopefully be able to better determine if the strange bright spots on Ceres are a sign of extraterrestrial civilization or if they indeed have a volcanic origin.
You may have seen lots of buzz recently about an alleged UFO crash in Canada on February 18th. Well, Roger Marsh, Director of Communications for the Mutual UFO Network, reports that the original story was a gag, according to Canadian UFO researcher Chris Rutkowski.
MUFON Assistant National Director Stu Bundy quickly chased down the UFO crash details and discovered it was a hoax. Canada's CBC News was in touch with the Canadian military, who reported that the Manitoba sighting report was actually an airplane from a training exercise.
Bundy said the best information came from Rutkowski, who operates Ufology Research, one of Canada's best UFO information resources. Chris actually spoke to the people on the Jackhead First Nations Reserve, Bundy said, who said nothing was happening and that there wasn't a crash of anything, let alone a flying disc.
Multiple media outlets and people on social media picked up on the news and continued to report that a UFO had crashed in that area and that the Canadian military had moved in and was sequestering the locals.
Although these UFO researchers are content with the provided explanation, some doubt the information provided by the Canadian military, which has some believing that a UFO did crash and the incident is being covered up by the military.
A woman recorded video of a UFO over Lewisburg, Mississippi in the early morning hours of Thursday, February 26th.
The witness, Angela Ashton, says she was in bed when she saw a bright, blinding light through her large bedroom window just after midnight. She raced outside with her camera to record the unusual aerial object.
She describes the UFO as triangle-shaped and extremely large. She thinks the object was at least the size of a football field. The object was completely silent as it hovered for approximately 20 minutes over a nearby field.
According to the witness, the UFO then shot straight up into the sky and disappeared. Unfortunately, the disappearance wasn't captured on video. Ashton says she only managed to capture a few seconds of video because it was cold outside.
Local NBC affiliate WMC-TV contacted purported drone expert Robert Estes for his opinion. After watching Ashton's video, Estes doesn't believe the object in the video is a drone because most drones don't have lights like you see in the video. Estes also opined that the UFO could simply be a plane.
But Ashton, who is a certified paranormal investigator with Cryptic Shadows Paranormal Research and claims to have researched UFOs for more than 15 years, is convinced that what she observed was extraterrestrial.
So we just concluded the 2015 International UFO Congress, and if you weren't able to attend this year, here's a brief look of some of what you missed.
They put him on the table and they put these discs on his shins, which totally immobilized him. His brother, this is a rendering that I did, and you can see in the background three figures seated. And this is what the twins were referring to, what Jack was referring to when he was lying on the back, or lying on his back and looking at us as though we were sitting waiting for a bus to come by. I recall a similar, this being my rendering, the similar thing. I forced my head as far up as I could, and I remember looking at my feet and I was thinking, well, where the hell are my socks? And then, where are my shoes? And then, the rapid thinker that I am, I realized I was nude, and then I'm there like, well, where the hell are my clothes? And then finally, where the hell am I?
They did a summary of it. It's 400 pages long. There's a lot of important data in it, to include the fact it explains how the indentations got into the ground. It talks about radiation, okay? One of the things that happened with us, that after the conference we did in DC, we had some interesting people show up and start asking questions and start offering us help. There was a particular person that got involved, and what he did was give us what the radiation probably was. And once he wrote the letter to Pat, and it was presented to the government and to the DOD and the not the MOD, but the VA doctors, it went from not understanding what my problem was to they knew exactly what it was, okay? And right then and there, everything accelerated, and within about 3 months, I had open heart surgery, and I am starting to get better and better.
These, in Omicron configuration, these things really fly unstable. They do not look like any sort of high-tech technology. To give you an example, if you put a bowling ball in the middle of your bed, and 2 feet away you take your fist and you push it down, the bowling ball rolls towards it. And that's exactly how the craft operates. It focuses a single emitter and creates a gravity distortion, essentially a divot in space-time, and the craft rolls forward, you know, in the distortion. So that's basically how the thing moves around. So, and this is opposed to our conventional propulsion, whether you're using you know, a jet, a rocket, a propeller. We always take something and accelerate it out the back using the action-reaction principle and, you know, push forward. And these guys are doing it exactly opposite. They're creating a distortion in front and, you know, sucking towards it.
You know, how did Bob know that on Wednesday over Papoose Dry Lake that there'd be something?
I didn't say he wasn't
there.
there.
I know, so we're talking about things that aren't important, so, but let's get to the chase here. Let's get to the chase.
No, wait, I think Stanton is about to say something
But
that
did he
you're
work
going to
at Los
find
Alamos?
surprising.
Isn't that the deal? Didn't he
Well,
work
I checked on his working at Los Alamos.
Right, and
I
George
saw
Knapp.
the phone directory. It says K/M after his name.
Right.
And that means he worked for a subcontractor, not for the lab.
So George Knapp is lying when George Knapp said that he went in with Bob Lazar and that he had the run of the place. He took him into the particle accelerator, that every employee knew him, that he's interviewed a number of people that have worked there with him, and that he worked on special projects. George Knapp is lying?
I'm saying Bob is lying about having degrees from MIT and Caltech.
Okay, great. Keep your eye on
If
the
a
prize.
person lies, why should you believe what he
Right.
says about
Totally.
anything?
You've never lied to get a chick? Okay, so I'm just saying.
We do have all of the lectures from the 2015 International UFO Congress on DVD, and you can find those at our store at openminds.tv. And so the Congress was just immense. This was our biggest year ever, and we had a lot of really great speakers. And what did you feel was the highlight of the event for you?
The highlight's really rough. I loved so many of the talks. You know, Linda Zimmerman was so great. She was a lot of fun with New York UFOs. I mean, a lot of the first day was really cool with Cheryl Costa, also talking about New York, and Joan Bird, James Clarkson and Ruben from MUFON were really great. Chuck Foltz, I'm so excited about the Allagash abduction case, and he was great with some of the interviews we were able to get. And of course, George Knapp and Bob Lazar was amazing. We took sort of a gamble, kind of introducing Jeremy Corbell, but it paid off. It was fun because he was real nervous backstage, but after he cracked a couple jokes and everybody responded positively, he was really rolling. He did a great job. Of course, everybody loves to hear Jaime and Richard Dolan. And then, of course, we ended up with like Frank Kimbler and, you know, Pat Frasconia and John Burroughs, who we recently wrote about, who had some amazing news. So It was just incredible. It was all really good. It went very smooth, but it really kicked my butt. I've been exhausted ever since.
I was clocking over 12 miles a day in the convention center.
I don't doubt it.
Having to be in so many places, it is exhausting. And I think it took a good week for me to recover my body to just be like, okay, it's over, finally.
As soon as I kick this little bit of a cold that I think, just from being so exhausted that I got, I think I'll finally have fully recovered.
Yeah, but we do have some clips, a fuller version of what you saw of speakers on our website and our YouTube channel. And then also, we can finally announce the dates for 2016. It's kind of scary when we just finished to announce, we're going to just start working on 2016 already. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. February 17th through the 21st at the Wecopa Resort in Fountain Hills, Arizona. So mark your calendars, and we cannot stress enough, reserve your rooms early because we sell out of multiple hotels.
And if people have suggestions, especially of people we haven't had recently in the last few years, or people we've never had speak that you think would be incredible, let us know.
You can email us at contact@openminds.tv with those suggestions. And the inclusion of news related to extraterrestrial life and UFOs continues to increase in the media. This has helped media personalities feel more comfortable discussing these topics and voicing their own personal opinions. One media personality who loves to talk about aliens is Jessica Chobot. Jessica is the host of Nerdist News, but she also hosts a podcast that allows her to explore the topics that interest her, including aliens and UFOs. Jason McClellan recently spoke with Jessica to find out more about this podcast called Bizarre States.
Jessica, it's great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I know, as do a number of people who are familiar with your work, that you are a big fan of aliens, and that makes you all right in my book. So we're going to talk about aliens today. But first, I want to talk about this great podcast that you do. And you've been doing it for a while, and I was only recently introduced to it. But it's a podcast called Bizarre States. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us about the Bizarre States podcast and kind of the history of how that got started.
Well, like you said, I've always been kind of interested in the paranormal and as a general, as kind of like just as in general. And so, but there's not really a lot of outlets I don't want to explain. There's not really a lot of outlets for me other than that I was aware of, other than just kind of like reading books about the subject that was really interesting to me and things of that nature. And so I was trying to figure out a way of how to kind of dip my toe in the water and have a little bit more of an interaction with people that have this similar interest that I do. And, working at Nerdist, and they have the huge podcast library, and I thought, this would be a perfect place to explore and start talking about the paranormal interest that I have with people that I already have a fan base around. And so why don't I start a podcast? And that's kind of how it took off, was just kind of scratching that itch, because everybody knows me more along the video game side of things, and like they think that that's like maybe the only I hate to call it a hobby because it's also a career, but kind of like a hobby that I've managed to turn into a career that I have. But then on the flip side, they know nothing about this other stuff. And I've been watching, I've been into it since 5th grade, when I was watching Unsolved Mysteries with my mom, and I wasn't, or like sneaking in episodes and wasn't supposed to, and going to the library and reading all this stuff. So it's pretty grained in there, and it's just a nice way to kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. And it's been, people are really tuning into it and really enjoying it, which just makes it really nice. We finally found, like with any podcast, we finally found our voice and the rhythm and like what works for us. And I still try to bring in little bits and pieces of what I'm like my day-to-day work life is. So if there's like a really scary game that's coming out that kind of dabbles in paranormal, I'll try to get those people on to have interviews with, and so that's like kind of the bridge between both worlds. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's all tongue in cheek in the sense that we don't judge anyone. I mean, we have my personal opinions, but we don't judge like, what you're saying is completely ridiculous. We never, we don't ever do that. It's more of like, we let everybody have their say, and we have our say about that, but it's all done in a really positive atmosphere. And we also try to approach it with a certain degree of humor, because there's so many serious podcasts and TV shows out there that I think are awesome, but there's a little bit of funny involved in all of this. And so we try to pick and choose certain areas where you just can't avoid the joke. And so that helps kind of lighten the mood, and everybody gets involved. And it kind of also helps guests that might be a little nervous to come on the show and like express themselves. It kind of like breaks the ice too, and like makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. So it's all worked out really well.
That's awesome, and I agree with you. It's good to have humor when approaching these things, and that's the fun of exploring the unknown. It's just, if you approach it with an open mind, it's just such an exciting thing to be diving down all these holes, and the podcast is a perfect place to do that and talk to people who have researched these different subjects, and you can just kind of take it all in and learn along the way. And like you said, I think it's important to not, do the ridiculing, even if it's something you don't believe in. It's a great venue to hear the ideas, and there can be some fun here and there. But I love the podcast as a medium to do that. So you talked about your interest in how books and television and media kind of fueled that. So I want to know, have you had any personal encounters yourself? Have you seen an extraterrestrial? Have you seen a UFO? Anything strange like that?
I not aliens. I suspect I've seen UFOs, although we had a guest on. Who was it? I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but they had mentioned that they had thought they'd seen UFOs, and it turned out like so many years ago, like 10 years ago, and it turned out to be a drone that they had, drones weren't popular yet, but they were still, out and about there being tested. And he ran into a group of people that were testing a drone, and he had thought it was a UFO. So I'm hoping that what I saw was actually a UFO and not a drone, now that I'm thinking about it, because it could have been, but oh no. But yeah, I went to school in Ohio, and my parents lived in Michigan, which was perfect because it was like a 3-hour drive to get from my parents' house to the school. But it was a 2-lane highway all the way. So there's always that pop-up construction in the Midwest to try and repair potholes before Christmas comes or winter comes around again and all the streets get ruined. So to avoid those, I would always travel really late at night, like midnight, so that it was always just a quick straight shot. Nobody was on the road and I didn't have to worry about anything. And I was doing that, and I had just passed Toledo, I believe, heading towards Columbus. And right after you pass Toledo, it turns into farmland. I don't know what it looks like now, but like back in early 2000s, it was just nothing but farmland and super dark at night. Like a few road lights and that's it. And it was always the creepiest part of the drive too, because it was so quiet. And if you broke down or something, there would be nobody around for miles to help you. I mean, you'd be traipsing through fields to try and find a house or something. So I was driving down that road just past Toledo, and off to the left, I saw these 3 really bright, like super bright lights in a triangle formation, 1 on the top and 2 on the sides. And they looked like that themselves. That brightness was odd, but it also looked odd as in it looked weird from the horizon line. Like I had a rough idea of where the horizon line was because there were a certain amount of lights that were out and about, and so I could tell which were radio antennas. They have those like tall towers with the red light that always blinks. It was above that, but then it was also super close. It was really weird. I don't know. For some reason I kept staring at it, and while I was looking at it, it was just kind of static. And then all of a sudden, the top one flew off to the right, and the bottom left one flew off to the left, and the bottom right one flew off to like the bottom right, all split apart super fast that I couldn't even see where they ended up going. I just saw the direction where they started at, and then and then that was it. And I just never, I mean, I thought in the beginning, I thought, oh, well, that must have been a jet. Like when I was seeing the lights, I thought it was a jet, because it was so face forward. And so it was probably traveling. I was thinking it was probably traveling towards me. And that's why it was super bright, because it was so, I don't know. I was coming up with ideas in my head, but I thought it was like a plane. And then, but when the minute everything split off, I completely freaked out and I got really scared because it occurred to me, I'm rolling solo on this highway in the middle of, nowhere at midnight or something. This is perfect prime movie fodder for abduction scenarios. So I kept looking at my clock thinking, oh, just make sure that this, okay, I didn't miss any time. Oh, I didn't miss any time. Keep driving, keep driving. And then I was like, don't think about it. Don't think about it. What if they can read your mind? If you think about it, they might come. Oh, that would be even worse, which of course caused me to think about it more and then freaked me out even more. But I ended up fine.
That's an incredible sighting, and those sightings are fun.
Stop
when you
laughing at you guys. I'm here in the office, and I've got my office mates, and they're completely snickering in the background.
Crazy.
Shut up! I'm not crazy.
That's a typical response, I understand, but incredible sighting, and for you, somebody who's experienced that, it's just such an incredible feeling you have when you see something in the sky and you can rationally come up with something to explain it, and then you have that moment where something happens that defies all explanation. It's just a crazy feeling that comes over you. So I think it's safe to say that you believe that there is alien life out there, intelligent alien life?
I don't know. I don't know if I would consider, I think there's life out there in some form. Whether it's intelligent or not, I'm not sure. With how vast space is, I wouldn't be surprised if there was. I just don't know I don't know, even despite everybody's stories about intelligent beings, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't had a personal experience like that, and based off of my day-to-day interactions with people just in general life, I can't imagine why anybody would choose to come here and check us out.
Well, I know our mutual friend Ruben Langdon has been on your show a couple times, and he's told you some of the, I guess, some of the more hard to swallow aspects that are brought up in this the field of aliens and UFOs. So we won't talk about some of that hard to swallow stuff. So, if there is life out there, do you think that there's potentially life here in our own solar system? NASA just released photos that the Dawn spacecraft took of the dwarf planet Ceres, showing two bright lights on the surface of the moon, and they have no idea what these lights are. Crazy stuff like that right in our solar system, the stuff we're discovering on Mars with Curiosity, lots of things pointing to life here. So do you think that we'll find life in our solar system?
I don't know. I mean, I have no reason to think this other than just personal hope and fun for it. But I would love to see. I don't know if I would say that I think that there's life in our solar system. I would believe more that there is probably past our solar system. But I would love to see, and I don't know if this is true or not. This is just wishful thinking. Ruins or something on a different planet, that maybe it was over there before it was here. Yeah, I basically want Mass Effect mass relays to be found everywhere in our solar system, because that would be amazing and awesome. But I don't know if I think that they're here. I mean, because it's for me it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, because I get pulled in two different directions where you start thinking that your solar system is so small because you've been hearing about the vastness of space and scientists being able to do so many things outside of our solar system, that you're like, oh, well, this is our neighborhood. And if it was our neighborhood, of course we would hear of something living here. But then when you got to shift the way you're thinking and realize, no, that's ridiculous. Yes, scientists have gone to these other planets, but with rovers only. People aren't traveling to these, so that it's incredibly far. So that's where I get kind of pulled in two different directions, where one side of me thinks, well, if we would have heard of them, we would have seen them by now if they were in our solar system. But then the other side reminds me, oh no, wait, man, this is, you lose track of how far everything is from Earth, and that there's plenty of places to hide. And not even hide, just to exist, and we just haven't found them yet. So I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's there. It could be there. I lean more towards maybe ruins or something like that, but I have no reason to think that other than wishful thinking.
There are quite a few leading astrobiologists who agree with you on that, share that thought that that's actually what we'll find are ruins of a former civilization, and I love that idea. That'd be so cool.
Well, because I kind of lean towards I call myself a hopeful disbeliever, where I kind of start off disbelieving things, but with the grain of hope that I can be proven wrong, and I always look to be proven wrong, and one of the things that I've kind of glommed onto that I agree with to a certain extent is that humans' existence on Earth is a lot older than what people have been teaching as a general rule. And so if the ruins that we have here are so much older, I feel like there's a potential for that potentially on a different planet. But I don't know. I have no idea. This is where Ruben comes into play on our podcast, is because he's kind of my main source for the UFO alien stuff. I dabble in it loosely. Mine's more ghosts and things of that nature, but he's really into the UFO phenomenon, and so I always touch base with him and God, he's so good about talking about this stuff. And you've met him, about all the information, so I just end up listening to what he has to say, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool.
He has some interesting things to say, but yeah, he does a lot of research into it, and it's interesting because with this field, a lot of people, base things on their personal opinions or things that people they've talked to have told them. So you really have to vet your sources, but it is a lot of fun to explore these topics. But one last question. Let's get into a video game question here, and dealing with aliens. I would love to hear what you think about video games and utilizing the abduction theme in video games. I forget the name of it, but I recently saw a story about a video game that's in development that's hyper realistic and is being ported to Oculus Rift, and it's about you're in your house and you're like walking down the hall and you hear a noise and you go into the bedroom and your baby is being abducted before your eyes. It's very like horrific and realistic. And this is like, it's a game. It's supposed to be entertaining. So what do you think about something so like horrific being used for entertainment?
Well, now that I'm a mom, anything that has to do with kids, I'm automatically like, nope, can't handle it. But games have always been that way. We saw the uptick with, it was weird. Developers knew that implying and harming children in a game was like a no-go zone. And it still is to an extent. However, that changed a little bit with Dead Island. Remember that Dead Island trailer? That was the first time anybody really saw kids get hurt for within a video game. It was a trailer, but it was implied that in the game, that no holds barred rule disappeared at that point. And then after that, we started seeing more and more kids being implied that they were getting hurt in these games. And the most recent one that I'm aware of is the PT trailer for Silent Hills. The playable trailer that they had that came out, where spoilers for anybody that hasn't played it, warning right now. There's one scene where you go in, you hear a baby crow. First of all, the whole storyline is based around this father that kills his kids, his family, and his kids. I almost did the last question.
All right, last question.
Okay, sorry, I gotta go shoot. It's all about how this sorry, I'm getting split up. How this father has killed his family, but he had small children, and you hear this over the radio while you're playing the game, and then by playing the game, you end up repeating a few levels. You'll understand why if you've played it. But then when you're going back through this one level, you start hearing a baby crying, and you open the door to the bathroom, and there is a very undeveloped, unborn, or fetus in the sink crying like a regular baby, and it's just terrifying. But like, who puts that in a game? You know, so so the mom in me was like knee-jerk reaction, oh, what the hell is this? But the gamer in me was kind of like, oh, this is so scary, this is so perfect, this is so awesome. So that's where I'm split. So for games like that, the game on the Oculus Rift, I will play the hell out of that game. Absolutely. It sounds amazing. I mean, if they can pull it off and really dial it in and have it look that good on the Oculus Rift, even if it's just not even Oculus Rift, but it's just a really good, solid, well-developed game, I am definitely on board to play that. The mom in me is going to want to throw up a little when I see that scene, but the gamer in me is going to be completely on board. I just hope that we don't, I just hope as gamers and game developers and publishers, you know, I think it's ridiculous to think that bad things don't happen to kids or to good people. And so I'm fine with including certain situations in games, but I don't want it to become this shock value overboard thing where that's the only reason they put it in there. If it makes sense for the story, and this goes for anything in gaming, if it makes sense for the story and it's justified in the story, then I'm okay with it. But if it's just blood and guts for the sake of blood and guts, or like people getting tortured or children getting hurt just for the sake of the shock value of it all, then I'm not on board.
I completely agree. Jessica, This has been so much fun. Tell us where people can go to listen to Bizarre States.
You can find Bizarre States every Wednesday on iTunes right around midnight, or Nerdist.com on Thursdays around noon, 1 o'clock is usually when we post it. I've got a Facebook page. Just search Bizarre States, and you can follow us on Twitter at bizarre_states. If anything, we do a really good job of teaching people how to spell bizarre, because I screwed that up so many times when we were trying to make these accounts. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show, and I'm sorry to have to run, but I got to shoot our Nerdist News show, and hopefully I made some sense. I know I'm kind of up on a lot of cold medicine, so I'm not sure if I'm really making any sense, but hopefully I did.
It's been fun, and we'll do it again. Thanks so much, Jessica.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
That's all for this episode of Spacing Out. As always, remember to visit our website, openminds.tv, for all the latest UFO news, and follow us on Twitter at openmindstv.
Let us know if you enjoyed today's episode by liking the episode on YouTube and leaving us your comments in the section below. You can also download our podcast, Open Minds UFO Radio, on iTunes or at openminds.tv/radio. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm Alejandro Rojas.
And I'm Maureen Elsberry. We will see you in the future.